In Syria, raising major questions about the future of U.S. foreign policy under Donald Trump. The U.S. has approximately 900 troops on the ground in Syria. It has also provided more than $12 billion in humanitarian assistance in the region since the start of the crisis. More than $1 billion in stabilization efforts since 2011. That's according to the State Department. Now, world leaders are waiting to see if that could all change with Republicans about to be in total control in Washington. Joining us now, Democratic Congresswoman from New York, Yvette D. Clarke. She sits on the House Homeland Security Committee and is the incoming chair of the Congressional Black Caucus.
Good morning and congratulations, Congresswoman. All the best in the new role. Herding cats comes to mind, but you know what that's all about, right?
Yes.
On a very serious point, I want to share with you NBC's news reporting this morning. Quote, the United States will continue its operations in eastern Syria and take all necessary steps to prevent the Islamic State's resurgence. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East, Daniel Shapiro, announced today. What role do you see the U.S. playing now as the game is changing on the ground there? You had President-elect Trump this morning basically saying, China and Russia, you handle it. Haven't heard anything official yet, as far as I can tell, from the Biden administration. What do you assess is going to happen next or should happen next?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I believe that what should happen next is that the United States can't remain on the sidelines. At the end of the day, terrorism is terrorism. And if we are not vigilant with respect to this new development in Syria, we can be creating a hornet's nest. It's always important for the United States to pursue democratic values and to assist those who are of like mind. The Syrian people want freedom. And my hope is that they will pursue a democratic pathway to governance going forward, and that they don't enable terrorist organizations to commandeer the governance of the people. At the end of the day, they were fleeing from their ruler because of his heavy-handedness. So I don't believe that the U.S. should be at all on the sidelines. We must engage.
Congresswoman, in the last hour, we had your colleague on the Homeland Security Committee, Congressman Eric Swalwell, on with us. We asked if you all had received yet a classified briefing. He said that you had not, that he anticipated that briefing would come on Monday when you return to the Hill. What questions will you have, specifically as you attempt to assess whether or not HTS is, in fact, moderating as they say they are?
Yeah, I think it's going to be important for us to get a briefing on what we knew when we knew it, who the leadership is and what their backgrounds are. It's going to be important for us to unpack this so that we are engaging with as much intelligence as possible. And again, looking at how the Congress can bolster the work that has to come out of the executive branch in order to make sure that there's stability going forward. It's going to be challenging. There's no doubt about it, but that's our role in the world. And I think that we need to maintain that integrity.
Congresswoman, let's bring the questions a little bit closer to home, a little bit more in your backyard. You are prepared to assume the leadership of the Black Caucus. As the Black Chronicle notes, Clarke now steps in as the caucus prepares for its largest membership in history. With 62 members in the House and Senate, Clarke's tenure will focus on combating civil rights erosion and ensuring economic health care and educational opportunities for Black Americans. This historic transition marks a significant moment for the CBC as it remains at the forefront of the nation. So the realities of what's happening in foreign policy, certainly domestic policy, offers an opportunity under your new leadership for the Black Caucus to play an elevated role. How do you see that role in matters of state and foreign affairs as members of Congress? Because oftentimes, I'll be straight up, African American representation in the House by a lot of people outside the House should be, well, that has nothing to do with HUD, so don't talk about it.
And ironically enough, Michael, the two areas that you just spoke about, particularly with respect to security, are headed by CBC members. Ranking member Benny Thompson heads up the Homeland Security Committee, and Ranking member Gregory Meeks heads up the Foreign Affairs Committee. So our finger is always on the pulse of what is taking place on Capitol Hill, both domestically and internationally. When you talk about HUD, now you're talking about Congresswoman Maxine Waters, a Financial Services Committee ranking member. We have the largest number of CBC members in the history of the United States in the legislative body. And members are on every committee of jurisdiction, in addition to having 4 members in the United States Senate, 2 of whom are new to the body, 2 women, as a matter of fact, who are new to the body and are CBC members. I expect that we will cover all subject matter. However, we will be focused on the impact of people of African descent. We will be focused on advancing legislation that helps the human condition, with the focus on the Black communities across this nation.
Congresswoman, this from Politico. Your mayor, Eric Adams, not ruling out a switch to the GOP, saying, cancel me. The mayor set to sit down with Tom Homan, the incoming border czar, next week to talk about plans to deport undocumented immigrants. Adams has said he would support any federal plan that focuses on those undocumented immigrants who have committed serious crimes. This is where we see, the municipal and the federal collide. We know that there are other blue state governors, blue state mayors who are saying they're going to hold the line on some of the policies of this incoming administration. Do you think you're going to be able to work with Mayor Adams to do just that?
It's my hope. It's my hope that, he will see the virtue in what we have witnessed in terms of the draconian measures that are taken, that the Trump administration has taken in the past. New Yorkers are no stranger to Donald Trump and him executing on a very harsh and cruel immigration policy. As a matter of fact, right here in the 9th District of New York, in the last Trump administration, we saw ICE officers for the first time patrolling local communities, and that's been unheard of. And so we want to make sure that our mayor, Mayor Eric Adams, stays true to the values of the people of the city of New York, which is the gateway, which has always historically been the portal for immigrants to the United States of America. We have the Statue of Liberty in our harbor. We have Ellis Island in our harbor. And so we understand what it is when people risk everything to live out their American dream.